This is tape number ET5 from the library of the Howard Thurman Educational Trust. Two meditations by Howard Thurman. This is side 1, entitled The Child and Religious Meaning.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. For many years, I have used the thing that I'm about to read now as the important element in the dedication services that are held in connection with the dedication of children, particularly babies. And I want to read it and make one or two simple comments about it. Thus a child learns by wiggling skills through his fingers and toes into himself, by soaking up habits and attitudes of those around him, by pushing and pulling his own world. Thus a child learns more through trial than error, more through pleasure than pain, more through experience than suggestion, more through suggestion than direction. Thus a child learns through affection, through love, through patience, through understanding, through belonging, through doing, through being. Day by day, your child comes to know a little bit of what you know, to think a little bit of what you think, to understand your understanding. That which you dream and believe and are, in truth, becomes your child. As you perceive clearly or dully, as you think fuzzily or sharply, as you believe foolishly or wisely, as you dream drably or goldenly, as you are unworthy or sincere, thus your child learns. And then, I am the child. All the world waits for my coming. All the earth watches with interest to see what I shall become. Civilization hangs in the balance. For what I am, the world of tomorrow will be. I am the child. I have come into your world about which I know nothing. Why I came, I know not. How I came, I know not. I'm curious. I'm interested. I'm the child. You hold in your hand my destiny. You determine largely whether I shall succeed or fail. Give me, I pray you, those things that make for happiness. Train me, I beg you, that I may be a blessing to the world. The truths of God shall be upon thy heart, and thou shalt teach them to thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest in the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Train your child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. In presenting your child for dedication to God, You acknowledge your responsibility to your generation and to future generations to see to it that his life will have a free chance to be a blessing and not a bane. You will develop and keep alive in him a sturdy confidence in the truth, positive faith in life, and an abiding trust in God. You will not lie to your child nor deceive your child, so that under all circumstances your child may depend upon the integrity of his mother and his father. And then there follows these words: I dedicate you to God and to the fulfillment of your life in the religious faith and tradition of your mother and your father. May it be said of you as it was said of the baby Jesus long ago, that you increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man, so that all who come to know you in the days ahead will find in you a benediction, breathing peace. Now, it is very important, I think, that children should grow up in the religious faith and tradition of their parents, in order that the roots in which the family's life is sustained and by which it is nurtured can be available as resources for the child. This is not to say that when the child matures, when the child rounds out his development and goes on his way with all of life opening out before him in many of its splendors and many of its disillusionments, that he will not want to make the authentic decision for himself. He will not want to say yes to this or no to that. I think this is important. But the most crucial thing, it seems to me, is for the child to have a sense of being rooted, being grounded in some kind of holding tradition, so that when he is ready to deal creatively and effectively with what to him will be increasingly the meaning of life, when he is ready to project the lines along which he expects to live his life, he will have a sense, first, of being at home somewhere, being grounded in something, so that when he moves from something that has contained him, has steadied him, has given to his organism, as it were, the same kind of rhythmic beat that sustained his mother and his father through the generations. For I believe, you see, that a man cannot be at home anywhere, unless he is at home somewhere, standing from within the context of belonging. He can project himself into the unexplored, into the unknown, and feel his way always having a kind of monitor which will not be a judge, but will provide perspective in the light of which he can define the movements of his life. Very simply put, if you were moving your furniture from one home to another, and if the movers brought all the furniture that is to go into the living room and put it in the middle of the floor, and then you came in to arrange it, it would mean that you would have to set the furniture up in some kind of order, and then decide what is the order that will be satisfactory to you. You look at this chair and say, oh no, that chair doesn't belong there, but belongs over here. Or the divan doesn't belong there, but it belongs at this place. In other words, if you have an order to start with, then standing within that order, you are able to determine what for you is the authentic order. But if you have no order out of which you are trying to make order, then you must make some order out of the chaos. And then, from that order that you make out of the chaos, fashion an order that is more in keeping with your heart's desire. And again we find that there isn't perhaps enough concern, enough energy, enough vitality in order to make all of these steps. Therefore, it seems to me that the birthright that every child is entitled to have is a context of religious meaning that will define for him what it is that he is seeking and where he may find it. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
This program was pre-recorded. This is tape number ET5 from the library of the Howard Thurman Educational Trust. This is side 2, entitled, Our Children Are Not Things.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. I'm reading from Meditations of the Heart. It is in order to think about children and our relationship to them. Often we underestimate both our influence and our responsibility with reference to children because they do not seem to be mindful of our presence except in terms of something to resist. The world of the adult is in some ways a different world from that of the child. We bring to bear upon life the cumulative judgment garnered from our years of living, of trial and error, of many, many discoveries along the way. It is from that kind of context that we judge the behavior of children. But they have not lived, and there is much that can be known and understood only from the harvest of the years. This fact should not blind us to the profound way in which we determine, even in detail, the attitudes and the very structure of the child's thought. If we are good to the child and to other people, he will get from us directly a conception of goodness more profound and significant than all the words we may use about goodness as an ideal. If we lose our temper and give way to hard, brittle words which we fling around and about, the child learns more profoundly and significantly than all the formal teaching about self-control which may be offered him. If we love a child, and the child senses from our relationship with others that we love them, he will get a concept of love that all the subsequent hatred in the world will never be quite able to destroy. It is idle to teach the child formally about respect for other people or other groups if in little ways we demonstrate that we have no authentic respect for other people and other groups. The feeling tone and insight of the child are apt to be unerring. It is not important whether the child is able to comprehend the words we use or understand the ideas that we make articulate. The child draws his meaning from the meaning which we put into things that we do and say. Let us not be deceived. We may incorporate in our formal planning all kinds of ideas for the benefit of the children. We may provide them with tools of various kinds, but if there is not genuineness in our climate, if in little ways we regard them as nuisances, as irritations, as things in the way of our pursuits, they will know that we do not love them and that our religion has no contagion for them. Let us gather around our children and give to them the security that can come only from associating with adults who mean what they say and who share in deeds which are broadcast in words. It is in order to make the first casual comment about how we relate to children to say that so often the most fundamental relatedness to the child is an unconscious one. We are functioning all the time as adults, creating a climate in which our children live and from which they get important clues as to what things mean. A child can gather so much more from the tone of our voice or from what we do with our eyes when we are saying our thing than from all the formal words that we may utter directly to the child, which words, as they move from our lips, have as their purpose the shaping of an image in the mind of the child. No, the image, again and again, is shaped almost unconsciously. The child absorbs it from the environment. We may say all of the words that we can conjure up about how wonderful it is to have respect for other people and to love people, or even to love someone who is close at hand. But if the child sees the deed, if the child is present when the sharp word is given, if the child is there when the conversation goes on behind the other person's back, all of this goes into the shaping of the inward parts of the mind and the spirit of the child. I learned so much more about prayer, for instance, from my mother than any of the words that she ever used in teaching me little prayers or in teaching me to pray, by something that I saw one night when I rushed into her room and was so excited that I forgot my manners and did not knock at the door beforehand. I simply burst into the room, and there she was, kneeling beside her bed in prayer. And the moonlight came through the window across her face. And what I saw in her face said to me about the inner meaning of the prayer experience what all the teaching in the world could never have said. Now, over and above these unconscious teachings and these unconscious influences, something must be said about the direct and the conscious thing that is done. For instance, it is of absolute and how should I say it, crucial importance that we do not ever lie to our children, so that the child knows that even though his words may be weak, his words may be full of mixtures of fantasy and fancy and imaginings, all of the things that come out of the magic of the child's mind. But if he knows that when his mother speaks, or when his father utters the word, that this is dependable, that this is the truth, so that the child has something against which he can put all of the pressure of his life, of his days, of his energies, and not feel that this thing gives, that here is something that is dependable. The night may come and the night may be long and the night may be dark, and the next day it may be raining, or the child may have a sore toe or a sore foot, or he may be disappointed because of this thing or the other thing, but always back in the shadows of his mind is the deep, rock-like confidence that my father is true, my mother is true, and what my mother says or what my father says can be depended upon. And this provides an emotional security that, in my judgment at any rate, is as profound and as stabilizing as the emotional security about which we hear so much, that comes from tender loving care and from being regarded kindly and tenderly and graciously by the parents. The child wants to know, consciously and unconsciously, that there is something upon which he can depend, that has solidity, that against which he can put all of his tantrums and all of his pressures and all of his little anxieties, and this thing holds. And this he gets directly from his mother and his father, so that their words are yes and no. And when they speak, the child knows that he's standing in the presence of that which is dependable. And it is this that gives him his clue
as to what God means in the world.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
The proceeding was pre-recorded.